y'all are something else. I really enjoy you guys. Oh, come on, chair. Okay, I think my green screen is now fully melded into the background. All right, so for those of you who have sponsored minis, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll let you know when I have more in. I should have more bricks of them coming in at some point. We'll keep these charts open in case we want to give any resistances, immunities, and such. Ooh, pardon me. Also, because we're going to now be using the information here in the DMG to make a race. Let's do so, right? We have the player's handbook ready to go. We have the monster manual because we're going to be making an Ooze person. And someone had mentioned Monster Musume. And so here is here's a very innocent PG-13 reference to what is to kind of what we're going to be looking at making as an Ooze person. There you go, XCat. And so what we can do is, you might have others who can pour over it, as we do have a mentor network. If you're looking for various kinds of feedback, let us know what you're seeking, and that way it'll be a little bit easier for us to be able to give you some fine-tuned help, if that makes sense. Oh, and you dropped some art. Hey, very cool, XCat. As someone who enjoys Berserk, you're making my heart tingle in good ways. Like I'm definitely getting that very kind of creepy, exotic vibe from these creatures. Oh no! So it looks like are you telling a story here? Because this creature is your first creature, isn't it? No, wait. That's 6 wings. Well, there's 4. Very cool though, XCat. Thank you very much for sharing your talent with us. Hey, Del Corin. Del. We did pop open, by the way. If you're still looking for a short stack, character, we did pop open this one. She has a sword, and then on her back is a bow and arrow. I don't know if something like that is interesting to you. But I know that you had a short stack character planned, and we did pop one. This is in the general pool of available minis. If you read the main Nullmancer doc... Oh, gotcha. Alright, XCat. You're thinking the Ooze guy from the digital manga? Oh, no. I'm familiar with Bastard. That's fine. That's within the realm of PG-13. Don't worry about it, Bro Applier. And thank you for your consideration for the language, though. That is nice of you to do. Yeah, I got you, XCat. Currently trying to do that with the minis I have and just avoiding using my cutouts. Okay, no problem. No problem. Oh, and Cameron's broadcasting some Brawlhalla, and Lieutenant Virus is playing some D's and D's, as is Katie Sue, playing Horde of the Dragon Queen. If you want to check out some other party members, very cool stuff. Oh, I love it. I collect Kingdom Death miniatures, and so a lot of this stuff is like, yeah, I'm into it. I just can't show half my Kingdom Death miniatures on stream, otherwise Twitch would just have a conniption and ban me. Rift Reaper Observer. Gotcha, DexCat. Alright, so here we go. Let's make an Ooze race. We have our inspiration. We can always have Sue return when we'd like. If we do want to cross-reference, we can keep this document in the middle and go back and forth, because I do have Volo's guide open if we want some more official races. The Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. So, for example, changelings? Maybe there's some changeling traits that we can incorporate with our Ooze people. Also, here's Races of Ravnica. The Loxodon might not be the best example. Now, by the way, this is playtest. Technically, Eberron and the Unearthed Arcana Ravnica races, this is playtest material. But maybe we can use something from the Simic Hybrid about different traits. But let's look at the anatomy of an Ooze as a monster. And not just the anatomy of an Ooze as a monster girl, because you can do that on your own time. Someone said before, I forget who, Con is probably going to be a main stat. I would agree, because look, Con is high. After that is strength. They have various condition immunities: blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, or prone. Now, some of that is going to come from the fact, like for the cube, they're just dumb, right? They have an intelligence of 1. They just live to eat. And so you can't really charm them because they don't have thoughts to influence. If we're going to be making a PC race of Ooze people, they're probably going to lose some of these condition immunities. They also have blind sight 60 feet, and that they are blind beyond this radius. So there are no eyes. Now, we might want to consider that they have some sort of sensory organs like eyes. It could be interesting to have a character race that had blind sight out to 60 feet and that was it. That would be your call as a DM. Because if you have a party that has a drow, a dwarf, a halfling, and an Ooze creature, you're describing the same room in the dark in 4 different ways to 4 different PCs. So do you want to take that extra step? Right? That's why we don't have low light vision anymore. Everything is dark vision, and except for drow, everything is 60 feet of dark vision to make it simple. Would be minor shape-shifting? I think something like that can work, XCat. And so that's also why I wanted to bring up the changelings from the Eberron setting. You're reading Age Matters? I'm not familiar with that, Bro Applier. To have people make characters of their pets? Yeah, you know, you can find inspiration for characters all over. They can fit into places. Yes, exactly. Squeezing, so that they wouldn't really be immune to the, or they would be immune to the squeezing condition, I think. So let's look here. Blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, prone. Blind sight. I think blind sight is something we could give them. And then they have this pseudopod and engulf. then the question is, would we want to give them some kind of natural attack? And then if we're gonna make maybe a gelatinous cube or a black pudding, as a do we want to make them sub races in some form or fashion? I think blind sight is how they ultimately work. I'd take away pseudopod but keep engulf. Or engulf is a condition on them having to breathe, sleep, or eat. For example, and this is something else we can reference. Let's look at if you look at Warforged. It says somewhere that they don't have to eat or they do have to sleep. They have downtime. Oh, immune to disease. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. Now, I think that an ooze would have to eat and drink. They might just not do it the same way, and part of that could be an engulf style ability. Breathing, I don't know. I would guess if they want to verbally communicate, they're going to have to be able to take in air to squeeze out of them somewhere to be able to do that. Since it's a humanoid race, I'd give them normal vision and then short range blind sight 10 feet. Yeah, we could, yeah. And while they do tend to live in dungeons and caves and whatnot, they've never had to really rely on sight. So I don't think dark vision is really something that they would have. All right, let's take a kind of a basic. So we'll make Ooze traits, ASI, age. Alignment is wishy-washy because alignment is anything. Size. Do we want to make these? Do we want to make our Ooze people short stacks? Do we want to make them like gnomes and halflings, or do we want to make them medium-sized? And then other, starting here at blind sense. And then, so, we'll have like X, Y, and Z. And then we'll come down here and we can make, some sub races here of, that'd be interesting is if we make a black pudding that's medium and can split into two smaller. I don't know, what could that be too powerful? If you split yourself like that and then you could recombine later? I don't know. The spider climb could be interesting if nothing else. So if we went something like pudding sub race. Gray subrace. Ochre subrace. You think medium is fine here? So we'll use the gelatinous cube as kind of a base, and we'll go off of there. Insert pushing slime in a jar noise. Yeah. It'd be very lewd noises it would make, right, Dark Wolf? Hey, McCoolman, welcome. Welcome to the conversation. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. You guys have some great ideas, and I'm losing I'm losing my place. Sub races of different sizes, possibly, DJ. They start as a small character, but they keep growing as they eat. That could be interesting too, XCat. Right? So as they level up, they that would almost take into consideration something along the lines of what happens here with the Simic. They get a level 1 ability of Manta Glide, Nimble Climber, Underwater Adaptation, and then at level 5, they get another kind of adaptation. And you see that similar with some other races that get spell progression with some innate spell casting as they level up. You thought about the splitting aspect, XCat? Maybe the dividing thing can be a long rest. There are no rules for games within the game in 5e PHP other than throwaway mentions. Medium's good. 20 to 25. Yeah, slow speed. I agree, XCat. Splitting might complicate things. It's the only way to have to take slashing damage, and then you'll lose your gear, half your stealth, or half your health. Pouty, what I was talking about the other day was the gambling tavern dice games inside the D&D manual, either in play or DM guide. I can't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? As in references to games like Three Dragon Ante or something, Pouty Lips? Yeah, splitting would probably break the game because you're getting more attacks. Yeah, the amorphous. The jelly can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing. All right. So I think Toucan. Age? I don't know. Can they live a long time? Maybe. Right? They probably eat a lot. They move slow. Probably a slow metabolic. They might have a very long life. Long life? Question mark. Alignment. Kinda irrelevant. Size. Medium. Well, and here's the thing to think about too, Fluffy Sheep. If they have short lifespans, does that mean that they need to split off or how to put this? Because we do need to think of a culture. You know, so let's say that you have an ooze that's been around, and it gets to a certain age, and it has accumulated mass, and it's accumulated wisdom. And so what happens is the ooze splits into two. And so instead of one 60-year-old ooze, you have two 30-year-old oozes when it comes to physique and intelligence. And then each of them live another 30 years, and then they split, and then they split, and then they split. So it might actually be an asexual reproduction. And so what happens as an ooze continues to gather information about the world as it continues to eat aspects of the world. At a certain age, they just split, and so the one ooze becomes two. And so you could say as an entity it dies, but it continues to live on and further accumulates more information. Yeah, it's an ever-expanding race. And so as they eat and as they gain in knowledge and information, so there's no kid oozes, right? Whenever an ooze would die or something along those, or I mean maybe from natural causes, and not just being murked, because that can happen. It could just die off, and that ends that branch. There goes your harem anime game. Not necessarily. So, Derek, she would be the most difficult one to seduce in your harem anime game. Not that you can't, but just it's a foreign concept. XCat, sorry, I meant the gold, not the Jaffa. Yeah, like that, individuals don't really have a lifespan. They just divide whenever they can. Each keeps the memories up to that point. So they have like a race memory going back zillions of years. Yeah, so we can have something along those lines. So generally split by age 50 into two 25-year-old spawn. Have them be eat or die. They must consume X amount of food over X time or they start to dissolve. So, I mean, if you want to keep track of that stuff, or it could be a cultural consideration of oozes must be constantly fed and watered because they're constantly growing. But to instill an accounting minigame like that on a race would be kind of... I don't know. It'd be kind of Lorenzo Bichon, 1976. Thank you very much for that follow. I think no need to eat or sleep, but mostly water due to them being made out of drinking. Let's have it so they have a hive mind, just like the Dalek in Doctor Who. Maybe something like that could be possible, or if you got them together, their wisdom could go back a while. But because they just split, they're constantly splitting, spreading, and drifting. Very nomadic. It's not that they're antisocial creatures. It's just that they go where there are others that aren't, because then they're going to split at some point in time. Base walking speeds 20. If we want to stick to conventions, it would be 25 feet. If we wanted to slow it because you get the extra mobility from the amorphous trait, we could slow it to 20 feet. I don't know. For all of you out there who do play a lot or you think about rules or mechanics, would it hamper a party greatly if you had to, well, if you can only move as fast as the slowest among you, would having a character who moves at 20 feet instead of even 25, 30, or the rare 35 feet, would that be problematic in a campaign? Or would that be, well, we just have to think of something else? Or we have to put our Ooze person in a container and have the Barbarian haul it around like Chewbacca did with C-3PO in Bespin City. The move speed is a combat speed only. You could have the same walking speed. I think maybe they have trace memories prior to the split, so they come up out of the new being and mind to fill with memories. Well, but yeah, so if the memories split with each half, there could be incomplete memories that they go off to seek. Like, that could be an adventuring thing. They remember a full memory of something, and they want to go and complete it. Or they just carry around a bunch of fragmented knowledge. Yeah, I'm digging it, Dark Wolf. Let's see. Acid resistance, acid cold fire, but that's because that one's specifically made of stone. This one doesn't have any elemental style resistances, but it does have condition immunities. Acid cold lightning slashing from the black pudding. What could we call this then? Their gelatinous nature makes them resistant to bludgeoning and piercing damage. To normal, not to magical. Have black puddings come up in a dungeon soon for my players. Ooh, moo foo foo diadems. Bro applier. Yeah, kind of like Odo. That's what I had my changelings do in my homebrew game. You can hold your form for a number of days equal to your con mod, after which time you have to revert to your natural changeling state, right? Pale skin, kind of pale pastel hair, blank eyes, etc. You had to revert to your natural changeling state for I think it was for at least a day. I have to remember how we instituted it in 4th edition. Because we haven't translated it into 5th yet, because there hasn't been any sort of official supplement. But yeah, I do like an idea kind of like that. But you know what? If we're saying that they've already adapted to be in a humanoid form and have lost a lot of these conditioned immunities, I don't know if we necessarily have to have them revert to anything else, because they've just adapted to be humanoid and therefore have taken on the ability to be blinded, charmed, deafened, etc. Black puddings are fun, especially when the paladin fails his check and doesn't know what he's fighting and slices one in two. Ah, fun times in the old dungeon. Yeah, wood elves are 35 in the PHB. I think they have tabaxi as 35 feet as well. All right, so a base ooze gets these traits, and probably because of the lore backing it up. Um, how about that? Choose one skill and one tool in which to have proficiency, right? Because if they have these fragmented memories, then they would carry the skills and the knowledge from years before. Do you think that that supports the lore that we're making for this race? You think the amorphous part might be a little OP for a playable race, as they could get anywhere or surpass a lot of DM setup? That could be possible. Unless you made it something like amorphous could be. So it could be something like this. So if we don't want amorphous as per the monster, um, it could have something like this. Amorphous spells can cast freedom of movement as a ritual, as well as enlarge, reduce as a ritual. So it'd be 10 minutes to cast enlarge, reduce on itself, or freedom of movement. And then it's recharges after a on self. Recharges after a short rest, a long rest. Is it once per day or once per hour? We don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be a spell, but this is just a quick way for us to imply it needs time to be able to swell shrink or cast freedom of movement on it to cast freedom of movement on itself. In order to, so we could call it amorphous biology. And so this would be a spell-like ability. Self-only, long rest. And should it be freedom of movement or enlarge reduce? Or I guess what instead of biology we can call it amorphous heritage. Or, okay. Gotcha. One per. Okay. So, if we are using this as a base, let's make our hill dwarf and our mountain dwarf, so to speak, right? So here is the cutoff. So all oozes are going to get 2 con and this stuff here. Let's look at what the pudding does. Right? Here's black pudding. It does have a split mechanic. Oh, hey, McCool Man, you come back as a male tiefling paladin. Hey, good choice. Tiefling paladins actually work out pretty well. What if they shrink or grow, they don't change back until they use the ability again? Oh, you know what? You know what might happen here? Also, is also immune to... Or... also has advantage on saves versus spells like polymorph. So they're not going to be immune. Because they're not a shapeshifter that can necessarily do it at will. But maybe we give them advantage on it because they are so wibbly wobbly. Yeah, McCool Man, you're welcome to do so. You think the gelatinous resistance should be slashing and piercing? Well, if we're making them more solid Dark Wolf, they presumably could be grappled still. Because they are sacrificing aspects of their very loosey-goosey, unintelligent behavior for this refined form. I think that the blunt resistance that makes more sense, especially when you have black puddings that actually react to slashing damage. And also, I mean, to me, you use a knife to cut Jello up. But if you bap at Jello or you poke it, the holes just sort of reform. Now, if we did resistance, I guess we could try and scale it. We could try and scale it like a barbarian, or we could try and I don't know, how does a barbarian handle that again? It's under rage, I think. Class is barbarian. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage as you rage. I don't know if having a resistance to non-magical bludgeoning and piercing is necessarily broken. intrinsically. If it was DR, it'd probably be based off its con modifier. And just say it would, or we could treat it then like rage. So it'd get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. But it would be a small amount, like equal to its con modifier. You'd give it the same ability as an orc ninbins. Let's go take a look at that. When you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So it would take normal damage, but it would have relentless endurance ninbins. XCat says, a creature I have in my main project can choose to take resistance to blunt damage, but in doing so it travels with the momentum being moved a distance that makes sense versus the damage. Well, and you know, Ninbins, it does draw on an like a racial trait that already exists. XCat, I understand what it's going for, but I think you want to be careful about putting in a bunch of extra accounting or math or calculations into things. You know, as at an individual tabletop setting, you know, we may be willing to do that. But if we're thinking, let's say that we're going to create our own Unearthed Arcana to unleash on the D&D world, which actually would be kind of cool, right? You know, to have us as a community pull together ideas and put out some supplements. So yeah, so maybe gelatinous here would be, you know, so we'll call this gelatinous endurance. When you are reduced to 0 hit points, but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. It could be RP'd, though XCat. Something to take into consideration when you're playtesting these ideas, you have to take the min-maxer, ultimate, you know, that guy approach. A care-upper. And I don't say that with necessarily contempt. Some people love the math and the statistics. But you have to write it out to an extreme. And there's going to be people who don't want to roleplay those things. McCool Man, I mean, you could make that offer, but every time that we broadcast, on different days, you have different people with different availabilities, and so you could solicit for that, but I don't know if you're necessarily going to get a lot of talking about that on Discord over the course of time. I think you're going to have a much better result than throwing it out there during a random broadcast. I mean, any of you who want to play with McCoolman, you are welcome to respond. But to give you some solid advice, I would use the Discord with that long view in mind, McCoolman. Yeah, Heavy Armor Master gives you that DR. Yeah, there was a feat or something I thought that did that. Okay. So I think we have a solid start. Heh. Joke. GM Vault. Already, boys and girls and oozes. Time for bed. Got to work in the morning. Have a great night, GM Vault. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. It was great to see you again, man. The DMG and the Monster Manual, McCool Man, are I would highly recommend. XCat says if they can minorly shapeshift their body, they'd maybe be able to change their voice and mimic sounds. Maybe. I mean, some would, some wouldn't, just like people, and therefore nothing would prevent them from taking the feat that allows them to do so. I guess, does an ochre jelly really do anything different? I guess we don't really need a third sub race. I don't know if ochres bring anything to the table other than the fact it's a large ooze. So let's get rid of the ochre sub race. What about general elemental jellies as a sub race? I'm not sure I follow you, XCat. It's full of squishy sounds. Yeah, they probably do have their own language. All right, so the pudding sub race. Let's see. So their traits are spider climb, splitting, but I think splitting would be too difficult to implement, a lot of accounting, and corrosive form. So in this case, if we did, let's go back to the player's handbook. And let's go back to Dwarf's. Dwarf. Each of these are going to get an ASI of some different kind. Let's see. So maybe not a full spider climb, but it does gain a climb speed. For the splitting, instead of making a second, what if you just make a small blob you could see or hear? Or pick one sense and you can use it as a certain distance? Possibly. The Oblex can do something similar by sending people out, but it maintains a physical connection, right? It has like an ooze tendril going out to the shape-shifted form in order to scout around. Pudding and jelly subraces would sound delicious, though. Sure. So we have a pudding subrace and a jelly subrace. Something along those lines, right? Yeah, a climb speed. And then, so what makes a black pudding also is this corrosive form. A creature that touches the pudding or hits it with a melee attack while within 5 feet of it takes 4 acid damage. Any non-magical weapon made of metal or wood that hits it corrodes. After dealing damage, the weapon takes permanent and cumulative -1 penalty to damage rolls. If its penalty drops to -5, the weapon is destroyed. Non-magical ammunition. So this could be something interesting then, to make it to give it corrosive form. So if that's the case, that would mean that the jelly, though, would corrupt any sort of armor or clothing, oh my, that it chooses to wear. So instead, we could look at giving it something like an acid attack, somewhat similar to the Simic hybrid. As an action, you can spray a stream of acid from glands in your mouth, targeting one creature or object you can see within 30 feet of you. The target takes 2d10 acid damage unless it succeeds, blah, blah, blah. Or we base it off of the acid breath of the Dragonborn, which would be a 5 by 30 foot line dex save. Yeah, a black pudding monk. Not only armor, it can't even wear a loincloth. Not that, I guess in a natural state it would really need to clothe itself. Unless, we're basing it off of, various inspirational material. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Cool man, I don't know how to help you with that. You could give them corrosive form, but reduce the damage to half their proficiency. So why don't we just give them the Draconic Ancestry, right? Where you get resistance and the attack. Especially because it's based off of con. Resistance plus acid makes it... And acid is kind of a neutral one, right? If we go back to our chart... So in total, there are only 12 spells that deal acid damage. And if we look at monsters, it's kind of a medium... It's a medium resistant and immunity damage type. So I don't think it's too overpowered. I think you can still get versatility in. You can use acid actually as a utility, not just an attack. And so I think this would make for a nice, it would make for a nice average, a medium frequency. Do pudding slimes come from a slime and an acid? Well, it's just that the acid in their body, they're able to concentrate and project. All right, now, what would our pudding get as its secondary, right? If all of them are going to get 2 con, it has kind of a higher wisdom. It has kind of a higher dex, I mean, compared to anything else. Would we want to go 2 con, 1 whiz? Would puddings be a wiser form of ooze? And in that case, what would we do for our jelly? Let's take a look. Because technically we're basing our jelly off of our gray ooze. Shh, don't tell anyone. Whiz and Dex. So if we went Dex for the gray ooze, that would make a heck of a barbarian, right? Con and Dex as your stats. You think the jelly should get charisma? Well, yes and no. I mean, Dex can still help with attacks. It can also help with armor class, too. Especially because, if we look at the Gray Ooze, the Gray Ooze is based off of hiding. Right? If it, I think we can give it a modified form of what wood elves get. Wood elves can hide in fog and rain and other stuff like that. I think for a gray ooze, we can give them a similar ability, and I think making them kind of stealthy and dexterous would make a lot of sense. Jellies have colorful personalities. If you want to make an ochre, if we want to then make a jelly, right? So we have a gray ooze, an ochre jelly. We can make 3 sub races. It doesn't have to just be 2. I just didn't know what the third would bring to the table, because this is just sort of like a generic. This is kind of like a generic big blob. It doesn't necessarily do anything special. It's just big and there. So let's go back and take a look at wood elves, because it's either wood elves or we could base it on something like naturally stealthy as well. You may attempt to hide even when you're only lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, and other natural phenomena. So in this case, instead of Mask of the Wild, it would be something like Mask, or I guess what, like backdrop of earthworks. You can attempt to hide even, you can attempt to hide when you are adjacent to any kind of rock, brick, or mud surface. And that would represent the Great Ooze's ability. You see how the Great Ooze blends into dungeon walls and other things like that? And so if you're skirting around a dungeon wall, or you're going through a cave, or you're in a castle, or something like that. An Ooze rogue, kind of, yeah. So I guess this would be 1 dex. But this one doesn't have the spider climb. Or a climb speed, I should say. Well, they already have growing in size by being a part of an ooze as the base race, not just a sub race specialization. Hmm. Hmm. What could we do with something like, because the corrode metal is a corrode metal is a pretty good could we base that on a spell or something? I mean, if you're gonna be You can wear hide armor, wooden armor, leather armor, um, cloth. Since this is really just a reaction to metal. Could we do something like that? So we have corrode metal and... Oh, you know what? If we want to make it based on the Wood Elf as well, we can actually give it bonus speed, right? If you look over here at Wood Elf, fleet of foot, your base walking speed increases to 35 feet. So normally it would have a 20 feet. This one just moves more quickly. And that could represent the fact it is more dexterous. I hope you have a great day too, Dorak the Merciless. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dorak. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm glad that you found us and decided to become part of the community. Jiggly Gelatin. But I like Ripple Step. I guess while being hidden or while hiding. So your movement becomes 30 feet and you can move at full speed while hiding. Hey, Doric, that's fine. Winter is coming, my friend. Winter is coming. And it'll be nice to have you. KH Darkwolf noticed us. Oh my. Yeah, well, you're on the other side of the world, so you are, as I was talking to Ninbins earlier, because one of our community members is also down in New Zealand. You know, you guys, we took good care of summer up here, but it's your turn to have it. Hype, 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 yeah. And what's... Oh, you know what we could do? I don't know if it'll make it too overpowered, but you know what? I would rather put more seemingly okay stuff on paper than not. Let's give it, let's see. You can use your action to become... You can attempt to hide when you're adjacent to any kind of rock, brick, dirt, clay, or muddy surface. Or I want to work in this one with shadows to make it a little bit more utilitarian. When you do get the Nullmancer stuff, the null point system might seem like a lot of tracking, but it's not too bad in practice, at least for my group playtests. Okay, I appreciate the heads up on that, XCat. It can hit 32 Celsius here in the summer, and you're not looking forward to that. Oh. So I guess summer, we're playing a game of hot potato with summer. No one seems to want summertime. But it's okay. Dwarf the Merciless will keep us cool with that polar bear hype. At least it looks like a polar bear to me. My cat's trying to break into the room. You gain... I don't know, dark vision 60? I mean, it just has blind sight, so I guess... Is it 60 enough to help her break in? So she's reaching her paws under the door, and she's trying to grab at whatever is there because she really wants to come in and play. So here's a jelly ancestor. You gain blind sight 60. Also, while motionless, you gain advantage on stealth checks if near or I guess if adjacent to rock, brick, dirt, clay, or muddy surfaces. And then that could combo into the backdrop of earthworks. I don't know if it's necessarily because of its translucent, but due to like natural camouflage kind of a thing. They do tend to be dark in color. And so that could represent that they're kind of like seeping over their clothes or things along those lines. Come up to races, go back to dwarf. So that one gets a strength score and some armor training. It's really kind of a very basic one, and I think that a jelly would be... So maybe 2 strength. Jelly flavor. After a long rest, you may gain resistance to a damage type of your choice. I don't know if it needs too much else. Maybe... I like the idea of a jelly person not fully understanding clothing and it just sticks to rocks and itself in the shape of shirts and pants. Yeah, it might just even try and attempt to look like it. That's yeah, you have to take that cultural consideration into consideration. Do they get some sort of an ancestry then also? A jelly, an ochre jelly. They also get spider climb. But I don't want to... I don't want to... They get spider climb too. So maybe we give the climb speed to our jelly, and then we come back here. So we have an offensive. We have an offensive sub race, a mobile race, and then just sort of a tanky race. Or it's just a bruiser, right? With +2 strength. It would get 2 con, 2 strength, and it can get a resistance to a damage type of your choice. Which, if it goes Barbarian, if we have a Barbarian Ochre Jelly, by its gelatinous base race, it would be... It wouldn't even need to rage to have... Oh, we didn't give it those resistances. That's right. We gave it the half orc endurance. In that case, what if we go back to half orcs? No, you go back there. And we give them savage attacks. And so we can have this be acidic attacks. When you score a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, you can roll one of the weapon's damage dice one additional time and add it to the extra damage of the critical hit as acid damage. Oh, to make the ochre jelly the one that can haul a bunch of stuff, because it's big. Alrighty. That is worded under furbolgs and loxodons. Powerful build. You count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push, drag, or lift. There we go. In that case, maybe we should just drop it to 1 strength. Since you're getting a damage resistance, yeah, you're getting this little bit of extra acid damage, and you're getting powerful build. Yep, there you go, X-Cat. And orcs, not half orcs. That would make for a very scary fighter, Forsaken. How human versus ooze are they? I guess if we're going to call them a humanoid race, they would have a vaguely human appearance. I mean, look, here's our artistic interpretation is here, right? It doesn't really have hair, doesn't really like, it's one blob that is chosen to take on some kind of a shape. There. I think this might bring it up just a little bit higher, too. Because there are rules on trying to grapple or trip creatures that are bigger than you. So instead of powerful build, Swole. Okay, so here we go. Imagine an ooze using disguise self, then a child or someone casts a joke spell at them, and they use their oozeness to make themselves look like they are melting. It breaks the disguise, and they just turn into a puddle. Yeah, you could probably do something fun along those lines. Will they be genderless or decide what gender? Because they reproduce asexually, DJ, they could choose to have traits, physical traits of some kind, but they won't. There's really not going to be any sort of sexual dimorphism, because the females don't need breasts for nursing or lactation or mammary glands, and the men don't need a hunter frame or the worky bits to make babies, because they just, after a while, they just split. Yeah, it'd be up to the player, or we could put another rider on Amorphous Heritage, where it acts similarly to a Disguise Self spell, probably cast as a ritual, where, you know, they have a basic form of a gelatinous humanoid, and they can then make themselves look a couple inches taller. They can fill themselves out to look bulky, or to give themselves hips or breasts, or to give themselves, you know, like different, you know, facial appearances. I think their gender would basically be something they would just choose, and maybe only choose it when they have to interact with other humanoids, because it doesn't seem to. Yeah, it's purely cosmetic for them, Fluffy Sheep. Hey, D&D time! Thank you very much. For any of you, well, I'm gonna give you 30 seconds because you might be caught up in an ad if you're just coming over here. You make yourself, including your clothing, armor, weapons, and other belongings on your person, look different until the spell ends or until you choose your action to dismiss it. You can seem 1 foot shorter or taller and can appear thin, fat in between. You can't change your body type, so you must adopt the form that has the same basic arrangement of limbs. Otherwise, the extent of the illusion is up to you. Yeah, that's true, Fluffy Sheep. So you could just write something general. You may, at will, alter subtle physical aspects of your humanoid form. Actually, how do they word it as changelings? Hold on a tick. As an action, you can transform your appearance or revert to your natural form. You can't duplicate the appearance of a creature you've never seen, and you revert to your natural form if you die. You decide what you look like, including your height, weight, facial features, the sound of your voice, coloration, hair length, sex, and any other distinguishing characteristics. You can make yourself appear as a member of another race, although none of... Alright, so maybe not as expansive, but we can take kind of a core, like a part of change appearance from changelings and add it to them here. Oh, really? That's fine. I want to work on my Guam anyway. My gross words a minute. That's fine. We got this. Morph appearance. As an action, you can transform your appearance or revert to your natural form. Transform aspects of your appearance. This is, we're not full on changelings. We're not full on changelings. If we have blue kind of transparent skin, that doesn't change. You decide what you look like, including your height. Maybe not height, weight. Altering your height and weight slightly within 1 foot / 10 pounds, maybe. Facial features. The sound of your voice. Coloration probably won't change. You don't really have hair, but you could have something on your head that appears like hair. Hair-like appearance and length. And sex. You cannot appear as a creature from another race, nor change your coloration. You cannot this cannot change your size nor number of limbs. Your clothing and other equipment don't change in appearance, size, or shape to match your new form, requiring you to keep a few extra outfits on hand to make the most use of your abilities. And you don't get a anything to charisma deception because you still look like an ooze person. It's just you, as an action, you can go from the strong, muscular, masculine jaw with the butt chin to a delicate, angular, maybe even almost insectoid female looking face. You know, I was thinking that too, X-Cat. If you change your shape and you're sort of a translucent blue druid, you're a translucent blue bear. I think something like that could be interesting. Beholder humanoids. So kind of a Medusa-like Cyclops. I'm not evil, laughing in my head right now. So does this give too much, though, to the base race? This, by the way, this can still make your ability to cast freedom of movement or enlarge. It says as a ritual without the need for material or somatic. You know, it still keeps it magic, so anti-magic can shut it down because arguably you might be like a quasi-magical creature. Also, if somehow you're silenced, that can still shut it down. Therefore, a DM does have a way to prevent you from doing this if he or she wants to capture you. Katie Sue, and for those of you who came along with D&D time, thank you. I hope you all had fun and you had your good wacky adventures as our broadcast on a Friday. Katie Sue, yeah, hell, don't worry about it. Look, anytime I get the message that that people are hosting, I try and wait 30 seconds because I realize an ad could pop up, and it's really awkward, right? You want to go on a raid, and you're like, yeah, raid, 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 and the person's like, oh, cool, thank you, but you miss it because you're in the middle of an ad. If you come up with too many trade ideas for the base race, you can list. Yeah. Oh. Oh, so you take commissions, Forsaken Synath. Oh, gotcha, Katie. Oh, I understand. I understand. So, Katie, we are making an Ooze race using the guidelines in the DMG and some of the other races in the player's handbook and in other sources to find some inspiration. Actually, if we really wanted to, we could just have it be without the need for material components. You may still have to be able to. You may still have to be able to kind of undulate your body to get it ready to enlarge, reduce, or cast freedom of movement. You just showed up, was listening to what you're saying. Ad plays, jargon container. Oh, you with your changeling? In what fashion, Katie Sue? I'm sorry, I'm not remembering what you're referencing. Oh, gotcha, Katie. I don't remember the details, unfortunately. I'm sorry. The biggest weakness to an ooze is a spiritual weapon cast as a giant ice cream scoop. I suppose that would be, wouldn't it, Forsaken? Oh, used it from the monster manual. Oh, we're going to make this bold, underline 20. Bold, underline 20. Bold. 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 Bold, 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 and bold. And we'll put the jelly subrace on its own page then. Bold, underline 20. Ability score improvement. It's jelly flavor, acidic attacks, and swole build. Yeah, formatting can really help, XCat. Formatting can really help. Half tiefling, half changeling with the glutton feat. Glutton feat? What's that? You get... Oh, so it's almost like blue magic from Final Fantasy. Kind of, right? You know, monster magic. You gotta... Well, in this case, you get it from eating them. An interesting concept, Kitty Sue. So the pudding subrace have a type of ability as the deep gnomes have, more or less. I don't know what the deep gnomes have, DJ. Yeah, okay, there you go. Yep. Cool. All right. No, Katie Sue, there is no fun allowed. This is Dungeons and Dragons. This is a game about math, accounting, min-maxing, balancing, etc. All right, I'm going to get up and take another break, everyone. Let's meet back in about 10 minutes or so, okay? And you know what? We'll be in part 3. If you want, we can make another race. We could talk shop. If any of you need help on something, we can discuss it. It's more freeform, right? It's whatever. We went in, we got the project done that I was hoping to do, and I hope this is fun. In fact, if any of you want to use this idea and play test it, I'd love to hear how it goes. You know, stress test this thing. Is it broken in some way, in a good fashion or a bad fashion? All right, let's take a break and be back here shortly.